ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Gary. For those that don't know Gary, has some words of wisdom for us in every meeting, and hopefully that'll continue in the new LD too as well. But Gary.
Thanks, Steve. There's a lot of Biden bashing going on with low polling numbers cited, and that's not unusual for a president in his first year. But let's look at some of his accomplishments in his first year in office. 13.8 million people signed up for health insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act. That is a 21% increase from the previous year's open enrollment period, when then President Trump cut funding for staff and advertising from $100 million to $10 million. The US economy grew by 5.7% last year. That's the fastest pace since 1984. The economy produced 6.4 million jobs, the most in a single year since the start of record keeping began in 1939. Unemployment dropped to 3.9% from 6.4% a year ago. Average hourly wages rose 4.7%. And yes, inflation did rise, similar to what President Reagan experienced in his first year in office. There was a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that lifted 11.7 million people out of poverty, according to the Census Bureau. And Americans built up 2.7 trillion in extra savings. Think of how much more quickly our economy could have rebounded if Republicans had gotten behind vaccinations and masking. A $1 trillion infrastructure bill was passed into law to address aging roads, bridges, and improve internet access to help boost the economy. And we should not forget President Biden selecting a diverse cabinet and filling a leadership positions throughout the federal government, including federal judges. He's appointed, by the way, a record number of federal judges, with women and people of color. Now he has the opportunity to name a Supreme Court justice. Our government looks more like our citizens. Let's make sure we do not let voters forget what this Democratic president, with a thin margin in the House and the Senate, has been able to accomplish. On the local front, Governor Do-Nothing Ducey gave his State of State address. Other than his attempt at wit, more focus on math than mask, he offered very little leadership in suggesting how the large surplus in funds could be used to support public education. His recent TV ad suggesting people get vaccinated and wear masks should have been done over a year ago. The Arizona legislature, this is critical, and Jennifer, please fill this in when you get to your time. The Arizona legislature has until March 1st, I've also heard April 1st, to find the 2/3 vote needed to override the 1980 constitutional spending limit, or public schools will be forced to give back $1.2 billion that the schools have already budgeted for the last 12 weeks of this school year. That means schools will have to cut 16% of this year's budget. The school districts have the money appropriated by the legislature, but without the override, they will not be allowed to spend it. Charter schools are exempt from the limit as they were not around in 1980. Not a single Republican has introduced a bill to address this issue, but our own Democratic Representative Jennifer Pollock and Democratic Senator Christine Marsh have introduced bills to ensure the $1.2 billion stays in the public schools. However, Senate President Karen Fann and Republican House Speaker Rusty Bowers have declined to assign their respective bills to a committee meeting. At least that's what was reported. Jennifer can give us an update on this. This all has to do with Republican opposition to Proposition 208, the tax that is expected to generate $827 million that exceeds the constitutional spending limit. Instead of spending their time on funding public education, the Republican legislators are focused on what is referred to as a parents' rights movement and election integrity. In the interest of time, let me just comment on one of the many Republican proposals regarding public schools. House Bill 2161 would prohibit school officials from withholding from parents any information relevant to a student's physical, emotional, or mental health. The sponsor of the bill, Republican Representative Steve Kaiser, said teachers are not supposed to be the child's confidant to the point that they do not alert parents to what is going on with their child. Their job is to teach my child reading, writing, and math, and not to console my son, he said. Representative Michelle Udall, a Republican from Mesa and a high school teacher, said that she has had students tell her they are pregnant. She wondered if she would have to tell the parents before the student had a chance to do so. Kaiser was unsure, and yet when the vote came, Udall nevertheless voted for the bill. Republican legislators have introduced over 24 bills proposing significant changes in the state's voting system. The newly proposed laws include limiting mail-in ballots, creating criminal penalties for election workers who mishandle ballots, expanding the threshold for automatic recounts, mandating special paper for ballots. Yep, we're looking for those. We're looking for special ballots. Expanding the threshold for automatic recounts, mandating special paper, prohibit ballot drop boxes, prohibit same-day voter registration, require people who only vote in federal elections to show proof of citizenship at the polls. That's currently required only for voters in state elections, and to hand count the 2 million plus ballots. I could go on, but time. Supposedly, all these Republican proposals are intended to increase confidence in our election system. However, after the Arizona election audit, the percentage of Americans who believe the election system is not sound at all has gone from 22% in January 2021 to 30% in November 2021. If you keep saying a lie often enough, it seems to help that some people believe it. Look, we know we have our work cut out for us, and the new redistricting just adds to the challenges. But there's so much little time and so much to do. But we need to commit to getting Democrats elected in this very important 2022 election. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Okay. And now to the bulk of our presentation here tonight, or meeting tonight. Carol, would you like to introduce our first guest speaker?
Yes. Hi, my name is Carol Moss. I'm the second vice chair of the LD17. And tonight we will be going through a list of speakers who've been given time to present who they are, what office they may be running for, and to answer some questions. I put into the chat that if you have a question for a speaker, please put it in the chat. We will consolidate the answers to try and get to what we can. We have a very limited time in which the speakers will be able to speak and take questions. So if your question is not answered while we have the time for the speaker, if the speaker is able to stay with us, I'm sure they will be happy to respond to you directly in the chat. All right, our first speaker tonight is a gentleman who is one of 3 candidates running for governor here in our state, which is a 4-year term and is an open election this time because Governor Ducey is termed out. So tonight our speaker is Marco Lopez. His background he will give you, but just to give you a little bit of information about him, he is a former mayor of Nogales. He also worked in the Obama administration of chief of staff for the Border Patrol area. And so now he is running as one of our candidates, which you will determine in the primary come August, who will represent us as a Democrat on the ticket for governor. So Marco, it's all yours. Watch Monroe, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Carol and Steve and all of you for taking the time this evening to listen to candidates and make your own evaluation. I stand in front of you today as a proud former border city mayor, Obama administration alum, small business owner, and proud immigrant. Despite what Donald Trump would have you believe and some of my Republican candidates, my parents didn't come to this country because they believed that this was a place that they could have it easy. They didn't bring drugs or crime. They were bringing that strong work ethic and that entrepreneurial spirit, that Arizona was a place that their kids, me and my 2 sisters, could get ahead, could do better than them. And that's what drove me, first in our generation, to go on to the university, but after graduating at 21, decided that I wanted to give back. So I moved to Nogales and I ran for mayor. I was elected the youngest mayor in the country at 22 years old. And that's where I met Janet Napolitano as she prepared to run for governor herself. I was helpful in Southern Arizona to her effort. And after I was done with my second term, she asked me to join her administration, working my way up to eventually be appointed director of the Arizona Department of Commerce, where I served for Governor Napolitano in her administration. In 2009, President Obama named me Chief of Staff at Customs and Border Protection, which is the largest law enforcement and trade agency in the country, with over 60,000 men and women deployed across the world and a budget of $13 billion. After 10 years in government, I decided that that was enough of the public sector, that I wanted to experience the private sector so that we never forgot what was at stake. And so the first project that I launched was Connect to Compete, a project that brings broadband to low-income, free and reduced children to their home for $10 a month. We've now connected over 1 million homes across America, 30,000 of those homes right here in the state of Arizona. That number continues to grow. Out in Mesa, I'm the founder of Skybridge, Arizona, the only inland international cargo hub that is on track to create over 15,000 jobs right here in Arizona. I'm running for governor because I believe that although for me and my family, that promise was true, for far too many families, it is out of reach because we are not investing in education. 49th in our country of educational investment. 11% of our population doesn't have access to affordable quality healthcare. That's 822,000 Arizonans that have to decide every single day, do they buy a prescription drug or do they make a home payment? That's not the Arizona. That's not the dream that so many people have of being able to flourish and succeed in Arizona. And finally, jobs in our economy. Post-COVID is going to have some real challenges for us. And we have to have a leader that understands how to create and actually build jobs in our state. And that's something that I've done since the time I was mayor in Nogales at 22 years old. I remember working right after 9/11 to figure out how we were going to restore our economy. So these are the challenges, real tough challenges that Arizona faces in the next 10 years. And we need a leader that's going to bring people together to fight and solve these challenges in a way that actually helps working families. It's that story. I remember my mom working hard in her candy store. And once in a while, she would get a young shopper, a client, and as she was selling piñatas, she only had a Ninja Turtle, but that little girl wanted a princess. So I remember sleeping in our couch because that was my growing up. I slept in our living room, 2-bedroom home, 1 bath in the living room on a foam mat. And I would watch my mom transform that Ninja Turtle into a princess. And I would ask her the next day, what was this about? And she said, Marco, we've got to be willing to do whatever it takes so that we can continue to have repeat customers coming, because this is what will help you and your sisters be better than us, do better than us. And so we've got to restore that. We owe it to our families and we owe it to our kids. And so with that, I thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you, but ask you, because the stakes are so high, it takes all of us. None of us can do it alone. It does take every single one of us. So I encourage you to get involved, get 10 of your friends to get involved, and get their 10 friends to get involved, because that's what's at stake. This isn't just 2022, it's about 2024. And so for all of those candidates that are joining us tonight, that are running for the legislature or running for school boards, we've got an obligation to also lift them up, because it's not just about us. We're all in this together, and together we can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Lopez. Thank you very much. We do have some questions coming in through the chat, so I am going to read them and give you some time to respond to them. And if we can't get through all of it, Monroe's still keeping time, so I think we have some time to answer these. The first question that we have is from Chris Love, and she says she would like to know how you will work to protect reproductive rights, including abortion rights, as governor of this state.
Thank you, Chris. This is an issue that sadly, today we still have to face the reality that women's rights and reproductive rights, abortion rights, are under attack. And they're under attack not only in the state of Arizona, but nationally. And so you're going to have a governor under the Lopez administration that will fight to protect and restore a woman's right to an abortion that is safe, that is easily accessible, and that they're not paid for. They're not called out, that they know that they can do it in a comfortable environment. I really believe in that. And I believe that it's also the rights, not only of the woman, but of the entire family. And so you're going to have a governor that believes and will stand up and fight and not allow this legislature. And if there are bills that we cannot kill, Chris, at the legislative level, then they will quickly and swiftly be vetoed by me. But I believe that this is a fundamental right that we all have an obligation to stand up and fight for. And you're going to have not just an advocate, not just a friend, not just a person who believes in this, but a fighter who is going to work with you and all organizations that believe in that right, so that we can make an impact and make a change, so that this legislature and these Republican-led legislator doesn't get away with it. But I have hope. I have hope that if we work hard, we can get a legislature that leans a little bit more Democrat, and that we might even get control of either the House and the Senate, Chris. I haven't given up on that proposition.
Okay, thank you. And neither have we. So, all right, former Mayor Lopez, another question that comes to us from Paula Feely is, what is your top priority for Arizona if you are elected as governor? What will be your first and top priority?
Without a doubt, I'm a product of our public education system. And I believe, and I strongly now have the experience, because I see it firsthand as we're trying to bring companies to Arizona, that a qualified, skilled workforce is paramount. So we've got to make the investments in education. But I don't see the educational system as a simple system that gets repaired by paying our teachers more, which we have to do, by reducing class size, which we have to do, and by making sure that the environment of learning is adequate. I actually come at this with an 8-year perspective, where every child in Arizona will graduate dual credentials by the time I'm done on my 8th year as governor. And we're making the investments not only in early childhood development, including all-day kindergarten and pre-K, but also in skills. I actually just came back from local 266 of the IBEW town hall. And in that meeting, reinforced the belief that we have to invest in vocational training. We have to invest in apprenticeships, and we have to invest in certifications. Because although the university was good for me, it's not the case for every child that wants to go on to that environment. So we have to invest in the skills that will allow Arizonans to be prepared for the workforce of tomorrow that I will work for every single day as governor. Thank you.
Thank you again. We do have one last question in the chat. If you can wrap it up in a 30-second response, I'm going to read it to you. The question is, how do you plan to support funding for public schools? Do you support comprehensive age-appropriate sex education? And that's 2 separate questions, so you can either combine it or take one, and then maybe if you want to answer in the chat if you didn't get a full opportunity to expand on your answer.
I'll be quick on the second one, yes. On the first one is, you're not going to get any more tax cuts, folks. The reality is that the economy is generating the funds, the money necessary to invest in those programs that I laid out in our education system, about $1.5 billion. This governor has cut $2.3 billion, and he's committed to cut more. If we invested those resources into our education system, we can do everything that I've outlined over the course of the next 8 years and more, because we're going to have an economy that's robust that can sustain that. So very simple. We're going to invest in the system that we have the money to do, but I refuse to cut more taxes like this governor has, and instead invest it in our education system. And I see, Lindsay, thank you for your work and your dedication. It's not easy, but that's where the rubber hits the road, in our school boards And so thank you for your work. We've got more money coming to you and more resources to you and every district in this state of Arizona. Thank you very much, Carol. Thank you, Steve. Thank you all so much.
Marco.
Please visit marcolopez.com. I put the website link on the chat. I'm always available to you and everyone else who wants to reach out to continue the conversation.
Right.
Thank you so much. And yes, please do put your contact, your website, anything that you want us to be aware of. We greatly appreciate that. So again, thank you, Marco Lopez, a candidate for the Democratic nomination for governor. Moving on, now we're going to hear from another candidate who has already gone through the process. She is not a candidate now, as she represents right now the legislature from LD18, Jennifer Jermaine, but she is going to step into the role of candidate for Justice of the Peace from the San Marcos District. This is an important, again, a very important office. People don't realize how important some of the lower positions are. And so she is, for the first time, going to be a Democrat on the ballot for this position in a long time. So I'm going to introduce Jennifer to you so that she can talk about her race and how you may support her as she goes forward. So Jennifer, it's all yours.
Bonjour, Ginawa, Jennifer Jermaine, Indishnakat, Chandler, Arizona, Ninda. Good evening, everybody. I am Jennifer Jermaine. I am from Chandler, Arizona, and that is the traditional greeting in Ojibwe, and that is our tribal language. So I will, when I win San Marcos Justice of the Peace, I will be the second Native American on the Justice Court here in Arizona. So that would be very exciting to be able to double the number of Native Americans representing us on the Justice Court. I am the ranking Democrat on the Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee in the House of Representatives. I also chair the Investigative Committee on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, soon to be Missing and Murdered Indigenous People. And I sit on the Government and Elections Committee, and I'm on my 4th year on the Government and Elections Committee. So I am really excited to be running for San Marcos Justice of the Peace, to be able to return back to serve the city of Chandler. This is the place where our family has made our home. We've been here for 12 years now. I am a graduate of Arizona State University with a degree in public administration, and I have worked and lived all over the world. So bringing that global knowledge back to our local races, making sure that we are navigating something that should be a rather nonpartisan position in Justice of the Peace. This is the court that presides over small claims. It's the court that presides over housing issues. It's the court that presides over traffic issues, and it's the court that presides over misdemeanor domestic violence and orders of protection. So for the last 4 years, my biggest focus in the state legislature has been in those areas. And that is why I really would like to bring this experience to our courts, and to be able to really prioritize, especially in our domestic violence cases, making sure that the victims have access to all of the existing services. Because one of the big things that we found when we started investigating into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is that most victims did not know these services existed. And that starts when they filed the order of protection with the court, and the court hands them a list of services they can access. And making sure that when we are looking at cases, we're using a fair, balanced approach and really looking at what the statutes say and interpreting how to apply them within the court. So thank you so much. I do need to collect all of my signatures on paper because this is a county level race. If you would like to sign my petition, I put my email address in the chat. Please send me a note, and I am happy to mail you a copy because I'm also a big supporter of the U.S. Postal Service, and I love the U.S. Mail Service. So, and big thank you to Jennifer Pollock and to AJ Portaloo, who have been helping me collect my signatures as well. This district covers the entire city of Chandler, and it pretty much follows the entire city line. So if you live in the city of Chandler and would like to sign my petition, I would be happy to send you a copy. And I'm happy to take any questions, Carol.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Do I have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat right now for you, Jennifer. Here's a question here. Does San Marcos Justice Court operate any treatment courts?
Thank you, Peter, for that question. And the Justice Court does not preside over substance abuse.
Okay. Any other questions for Jennifer? If not, then if you come up with a question afterwards, Jennifer, are you going to stay on for a little bit?
Yes, I'll be here for a little while.
Okay. Yes, and to confirm, you must live in the city of Chandler to sign your petition. Correct.
That is correct. You must be a registered Democrat or independent in the city of Chandler.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for being here, and we will do everything we can to get you those petitions. And I know that they raised your limit, so we definitely have some work to do.
Yes, I have one of the highest signature limits of any of the local races. I need to get a minimum of 1,090 signatures on paper.
It's amazing how our system works, isn't it? All right. Thank you so much, and we will have your back. Don't worry. All right. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is a lady who is running for the Chandler mayor race, that is coming up. The Chandler municipal elections are impactful in August, and depending upon the amount of votes that a candidate wins, it could be over in August. If it isn't over in August, it would go to November. So for you Chandler residents, you need to stay on top of things and vote early and in the August election, because that will make a big difference as to what you may have to deal with in November, if anything. So with that, I'm going to introduce Ruth Jones, again running for a candidate for Chandler City Mayor. Ruth, watch Monroe's window. You have 5 minutes to present. And again, for all of our participants, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Thank you. Ruth, it's yours. Is Ruth here?
She's on silent.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry, I didn't unmute before I started talking.
That's
Thanks
okay.
for having me.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And I appreciate you mentioning August, because at this time it's only the mayor and myself running. We will be determined in August, so every vote counts in the primary. The city council has enough people running that may run into November. Well, I want to thank you again for letting me come. I want to first begin by addressing the elephant in the room. I know there are some people who are a little concerned about having me here because I've spoken out at the CUSD board meetings. So I wanted to talk about that for just a second before I move on. I have 3 daughters currently attending the CUSD. 2 of them have specialized education plans. And because their needs were not being met, I went ahead and spoke up. I did not do so as part of any group or with any prior agenda. I'm not purple anything. That's just not who I am. I'm just a fierce protector of my daughters. I had 5 years ago, my oldest son passed away after battling brain cancer. And so I'm very tenderhearted for the needs of my children and for what they've been through. That being said, I want to talk about why I'm running for mayor. The city of Chandler currently has 333 police officers. That is less than we had in the year 2008. Our population has increased by almost 80,000 in that time, and yet we have less officers. 81 of those officers are vested in retirement. To meet the national recommended minimum standard, we should have 540. I know several of our officers, and I've spoken with them, and they're tired. They want to protect our cities and keep crime down, but at the rate they're going, they're all working mandatory overtime. And I know officers that haven't had a vacation in more than 2 years. So in order for us to continue to have a safe city, we need to have a better plan for our officers. There is funding, there is money that can be used to hire and we need to be hiring on a regular basis until we make that gap up and have the amount of officers we need in order to have a safe city. And also so that those officers receive all the training they should have. But in regards to the money, that's going to bring me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. I feel that our city has been spending a lot of money on wasteful things. A perfect example of that is going to lead me into the next issue. The city council and mayor just approved spending $66,000 to do another study on the non-discrimination ordinance, or NDO. I am ashamed that that ordinance has not been written and passed. The ordinance should be in play. Our citizens all need to feel safe. I have such a heart for this issue. I'm older, I'm in my mid-50s. So when I was born, they were just passing the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. And I remember growing up back east that there were people that I was friends with that my mom and I would go shopping in stores and they couldn't go in. And that was wrong. And then I remember in the 1970s when we had people that couldn't get into a store because they were in a wheelchair, and ADA was being passed and it was fought and it didn't happen. And it's just wrong that we're at 2022 and we still do not have an ordinance to protect the members of our LGBTQ community. I had to look down because I never get that right.
Yes, 1 minute remaining, please.
Thank you. In any case, it is something that I will work for and make sure happens because it's not happening in our current leadership. I want to tell you that what we need in this city is transparency. Our citizens need to know what's happening in the city. We need strength and we need a vision. We need a 10-year plan and a 20-year plan. I wish I had more time to go into all the things that I'm passionate about. I'm going to include in the chat my website, my phone number, and my email. Please contact me. I'm also getting votes to be on the ballot. And so I would appreciate any help with that. If you'd be interested in that, just let me know. I'll get a ballot to you to sign, or a petition for you to sign. But our city is a wonderful city, and we need to be working together to keep it growing and to keep it safe for our children. And I really appreciate this city, and I want my kids to stay here. So that's why I'm running for mayor. And those are some of my bigger issues. Thanks for listening to me tonight.
Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for coming, and thanks for giving us some information. We have a number of questions in the chat. I think I'll ask two of them, and then I will let you, if you would be so gracious, to answer the questions that are in the chat. I think you may have addressed one or two of them about the ordinance and so forth, but two questions. One is, somebody is asking about why you voted against the override for the schools.
Yep.
Do you have a quick answer on that?
I certainly do. The override is already in place for the next 2 years. So if it had not passed, it would have had the opportunity to go on to next year's and been voted on next year. So it wasn't in any danger of not going forward. It's really important to know that I said that because I wanted the school board and the district to really wake up and say, what are we doing that's focused on our children? In particular, our special ed department is struggling. And I wanted them to know that if they need those funds, they need to make sure that those funds are going towards our children. So I didn't want it to not pass, but I wanted them to say, hey, we need to be looking at what's best for the kids. I'm concerned at all the politics on both sides. I think all of it's wrong. There shouldn't be politics when we're talking about our children. And so I wanted to say, please, please look at the kids. So it was more of a wake-up call. And honestly, I knew it would pass. I've never seen one of those not pass. But I just wanted to put my voice in there that my kids, especially in the special needs, I have a child with a 504 and a child with an IEP. And my daughter started the school year off in a wheelchair, my third daughter. She's better now. But they were struggling, and I needed the district to say, okay, we've got to pay attention to that. So it was more of a wake-up call than anything else. Frank Narducci and I have a very good relationship. And I've already spoken with him about how I, as mayor, will be able to support the school district, because I support CUSD 100%.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, then please take a look at the questions in the chat and please answer them. There was a question about whether you are a Democrat. I just want to remind everybody that this is a nonpartisan race. All right. So if you have questions about Ruth's values, I think that would be a better question to ask, is whether she aligns more to the values we hold as Democrats versus what we are hearing from the Republicans, especially at the legislature, on the value of education and the way that we conduct ourselves with our fellow citizens. So if you want to address that in the chat to Ruth, I think that would be appreciated by our attendees.
Hey, Carol.
No problem.
Since there are so many questions,
Yeah.
I can give up a few minutes of my time if we want to ask it just a few more, if that's okay with you.
Oh, it's fine with me if you have the time. I know we've got business yet to do.
Yeah, we do, and I have the time. So if we want to take a couple more questions,
I'll try and be faster too.
Okay. The next question that was in line, and there's several more that followed, but someone made the comment, you spoke at the CUSD board meeting and accused the Director of Equity and Inclusion of reverse racism, said that she is there to promote CRT, and suggested that she be fired. Is this the same energy that you would bring to the mayor's office?
Well, let me explain why I did that. My daughter went to school in a wheelchair and was bullied so badly for being in a wheelchair that she could not go back for 3 weeks. I went to her specifically because that's her job description, to help children that are either from a minority or disabled. And my daughter is actually Native American, so she fits both categories. And I begged for help. She would not even respond to me. And I was told by a member of the district that she would not respond to me because I'm white. So to me, that's a crime. I wanted help for my child, and I wanted her to say, how can we get this child in school? My daughter missed over 3 weeks of school because of it. So in that case, I was fighting for the needs of a child that had, like I say, 2 problems that should have been in her purview. And I want all of our kids to be taken care of. Every child matters, and every child should be protected. Bullying in schools is a major problem and should not be happening. Rachel eventually went back to school in a knee walker because she had foot surgery is what the problem was. And when she went back to school in a knee walker, the bullying continued and her anxiety has been through the roof. My kids are adopted, and Rachel has drug exposure in her background. And so for her, anxiety and all these things are just huge issues. And I was desperate for help. And I'll be honest, I didn't get any. And as far as my energy for mayor, my focus is on what's best for the city and all our citizens. And I will be passionate about everything I do. I expect the people in our city to work together as a team. Every citizen here matters, whether you're Black, white, brown, handicapped, whether you're in the gay community, everybody. We cannot be a good city until we're all working together and supporting each other. That's why the NDO is important. When I heard a member of our gay community say, I'm afraid to go to a restaurant in Chandler because somebody might make fun of me or they may not be willing to serve me, my heart broke. And I'll fight for that. I'll fight to get the ordinance in because we need everybody to be protected. But like I said before, when it comes to my kids, if I'm asking for someone who should be helping them and they're not, I'm going to stand up against that because all of our kids matter. But I'll fight for as hard for every resident of this city as I'll fight for my children, because that's what we are, is a community. That's why this race is nonpartisan. We're not separated out by party or by any of these other groups. We're a community. and we need to be working together. No personal agendas, no separate things, just standing together so that we can have a good place to raise our families, where they're safe, where they have good education. That's why I've already sat down with Frank. He is a good man to lead this district. And he's already talked to me about what he wants to do going forward with the city to make CUSD go forward strong. And I'm 100% behind that. So I will be an advocate, 100%. And that was
Steve,
sorry.
Okay, Steve, do we have one more question?
Just one more question, and then we'll have to move on. But there's a lot of really good questions that are coming up in the chat.
I'll sit there and answer them.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
One that I see that is somewhat in other people's questions too, is that apparently you were seen spotted clapping at one of the CUSD on the CUSD YouTube channel after a speaker lodged into an anti-Semitic rant during the meeting.
Oh, no.
Can you address what people are seeing or are concerned about based upon that meeting?
I would never do that.
Okay.
If someone thought I was clapping, I'm sorry they thought that. That is not who I am. There's footage.
Well, I was going to say, okay. I'll let you address that in the chat. But,
I'll address it in the chat.
Yeah, apparently that was another concern that had been raised a couple of times. So if you wouldn't mind, and I'm sorry we can't give more time to you, Ruth, but
no, you're fine.
Okay, but you know, hopefully, Ruth, you can answer those questions and continue the conversation in the chat while we go on to our next two speakers.
Glad to, and thanks for letting me come tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, dialogue is what we need more so than ever in this contentious time. So whatever we can do to facilitate, dialogue. We may not come out on the same side of where we land, but it's important to have the discussion. So thank you for being willing to come too.
No worries.
We appreciate that. Okay. All right, we have two more speakers on our list tonight. They are both candidates for the one seat that will be up in the fall for the Senate representation for LD13. So we have two candidates. There will be a primary in this election if both gentlemen make the ballot with their signatures. The first gentleman I'll introduce is Michael Morris, who is running for LD13 Senate seat, and that will be for this fall. So Michael, I'll let you take it away. You've got 5 minutes to tell us about yourself and your campaign, your experience, your background, and so forth. You're on mute.
Everybody does that probably, right? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Morris. I'm running for State Senate, the newly created Legislative District 13. Let's see, my background. My father retired from the military when I was about 9. I've been here ever since, so I'm a military brat. I've been a realtor for the last 30 years. I sit on the board of the Phoenix Association of Realtors. Also, during my adult life, I've had a couple of businesses. I've done a lot of civil service. I was a state trooper in Arizona for a little while. I was a state corrections officer, and I was also in the military. I was a military policeman. That's my education. I've got college degrees in law enforcement and communication. So why am I running? I'm running because I want to make a difference. There's a lot of things that I would like to help and see, better. The big things that I'm advocating for would be healthcare. It's a huge issue. I've been self-employed for most of my adult life, and getting health insurance for a person that doesn't work for a big company that's 1099, it's a very difficult thing to do. So trying to bridge the gap, get affordable healthcare to everybody, including folks like me, that would be a big issue for me. The next one is education. I know lots of folks have talked about education. I'm huge on education. I would advocate to get the money to the schools, and this latest cap, I would definitely be against that. not, you know, taking the money from schools that you already gave them, for heaven's sakes. So anything that has to do with getting resources and tools to the teachers to help our education, I would be for that. Voting rights, I'm not sure if you guys can see me anymore. My screen just went blank, but I'm just going to keep on talking.
We gotcha.
Okay, got it. There we are. So voting rights, strong advocate for voting rights. I mean, anything that gets in the way of folks' ability to get out there and vote, I would be against. You know, the ID cards and can't do mail-in ballots, all this stuff. I'm against all that. I think that voting should be as accessible as possible to people. Get folks out there, get them to vote. It's our right. We should be exercising it. And so I would be advocating for that. Anything that stands in the way of that, impedes it, limits it, confuses people, makes them not want to do it, I would be against that. So voters' rights are very important to me. Equal treatment of citizens and systematic racism. We talked a little bit about that. I would be advocating, of course, to work towards getting rid of racism and getting these folks, getting everybody treated fairly and equally. And I have a unique perspective, having been a state trooper in Arizona and a corrections officer. I'm on the police side of that as far as my experience goes, but it's very important to me that everybody gets treated properly. And I've seen the mishandling of those things first-handedly, and it's just awful. I mean, like the George Floyd thing, oh my God, that's just, you know, it's just an abomination. So as your state representative, I would be working very hard towards trying to correct those things, you know, initiating productive, positive legislation to do that, and, you know, voting for things that further that. So I would consider myself a moderate Democrat. Most of my beliefs and stuff fall right in the wheelhouse of the Democratic Party. So I'm kind of, that's where I'm at. And so that's why I'm running. I want to make a difference. I don't want to just sit on the sidelines anymore and say, gee, I wish that were better. That would be nice if it was better. Do something. So here I am doing something. So I would really appreciate your guys' vote. I don't have enough nominating signatures yet. So I put my information in the chat, my website. Go to the website, check it out. If you see the world the way I see it and you agree with it, I would appreciate it if you would nominate me, because, well, can't do anything if I don't get nominated. Thank you so much. And I'm free to take any questions. I'll stay here as long as you guys have questions.
1 minute.
Okay, we can do one question here. Let's see. Yes, the question in the chat is, in a year when Roe versus Wade may be overturned, what would you do as a member of the Senate, the Arizona Senate, to protect the reproductive rights of all Arizonans?
So I'm pro-choice, and I would vote in favor of any legislation that would support that, and any legislation that would, you know, if it came up that say we're going to try to overthrow that, I would be against that. So basically my answer would be that I would support legislation that, you know, that keeps that going, to possibly even initiate some if nobody steps forward. But I'm pro-choice.
Okay. One other question comes up. I believe this is for you. Why have we not seen you before, and are you new to Chandler and to the Democratic Party?
Yes to most of those questions. I have not been active in politics before. This is really, other than sitting on the board at the Phoenix Association of Realtors, this is really the first for me to get involved in politics. I've lived in Arizona pretty much all of my life. I moved here recently from Ahwatukee about 6 months ago. So yes, I would be new to Chandler, but not new to Arizona. Did I get all the questions answered on that?
I will let you follow up in the chat. There's one other one that I'm going to let you follow up in the chat on so that we can get to our next speaker.
Sure.
But if you wouldn't mind addressing the 1 or 2 questions that are still left in the chat, simply because we're running out of time.
Absolutely.
If you wouldn't mind.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate you all.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
Very welcome.
All right, and our last speaker tonight is, again, another candidate for the Senate from LD17, which will be the race that we will be voting on in the fall. So Jim Hinsey is also a candidate for the 1 Senate seat that we have for the Democratic nomination. So Jim, you have 5 minutes to present and take questions.
All right, I probably only need 2, but let's get it going. Good evening, LD13. For those that don't know me, I'm Jim Hinsey. My background is in information security, privacy. I have been involved with the LD17 Sun Lake clubs for 5 years now. I've volunteered with the DIMS, done lit drops, committed my time to petition drives, helped pick up trash in the park, collected food, and marched with the DIMS arm in arm. I am your local candidate. My reason for running is we need DIMS in the state. I am disgusted with the Republican legislators, how they have demonized our education and our teachers. Arizona is at the bottom of education. Go Big Red for Ed. I am tired of Republican legislators attacking women's rights. And let me be clear on this. I will fight tooth and nail to keep Republican hands off of women's rights, anywhere, anytime. And I'm tired of big business selling your personal data, using it for profit. In the future, without proper legislation, you will be a victim of your data. That's going to be a fact in the future if we do not get privacy legislation into our state. The time to change DIMS, we need to get representation at our state. The biggest challenge is that representation. Please consider signing my petition. I look humbly to serve LD13 with my talents. My platform, of course, is privacy, information security, education, water, and all the DIMS values that we carry today. I'll take questions.
I'm looking to see here for a question that is related to Jim.
I don't see any either.
So if there is one to Jim, you can address it in the chat directly to Jim. All right, so that we can move on, because I know I haven't given Steve much time to have any of the business meeting.
That's okay. That was an important conversation. So
okay, thanks Jim, and thanks Michael for being here, and answer any questions that are presented to you in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started with the business meeting. Steve, it's all yours.
8:32.
Okay. One
yes,
thing I'll bring to your attention, OD is on. Do you have time to give him a couple of minutes?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Just a couple minutes, because I want to be careful of people's time here.
Yeah. Okay, OD.
But I'd love to hear from OD.
Okay, hey everyone, how you guys doing? I hope that you are well. I am sorry, I'm in a sports arena, so it's been kind of crazy right now. But I wanted to make sure that everyone know that we continue to support the non-discriminatory ordinance that we're looking to push in the city of Chandler. Currently, right now, it's in the DEI assessment stage, where we're doing a study on, what exactly that looks like for the city of Chandler. And this study is very important because we don't want a study that just says, oh, it's a little poll, but we need a scientific poll, a scientific study to help us better understand. They've already selected the 25 individuals that will be working to help with the consultant to make sure that we put forth the right type of questions and making sure that it's done properly. So we need the support from everybody, and that's been helping. Appreciate the Honorable Lindsay Love, who has been a great support behind the scenes and making sure that's being pushed, as well as Council Member Matt Orlando, who we need to continue to support as he run for re-election. But also, I just wanted to make sure that there has been a controversial conversation about it, and a lot of stuff that's been going around is simply untrue. It was brought to me that this will cost business thousands of dollars. That's untrue. It's been brought to me that it's going to create bathroom hazards. It's untrue. In fact, where we are with it, we are in the DEI assessment study stage of it, and we're trying to better understand how we're going to move forward with it. So I just want to make sure that everybody that's on the call is very much aware that we are moving in the right direction, but don't get caught in the cross lines of some of the dishonesty that has went on in the community that have came back to my table. And the last thing I wanted to make sure that we continue to do, you guys, I need everyone to support my initiatives. And I'm calling out everybody. Everyone, when I did the Chandler MLK, I don't see nobody. When I do events, I don't see nobody. So if you're gonna support me and allow me to lead you, come out and support. Not just for asking for things, but saying, I want to support and be involved. And if that's a communication issue, then let me know so I can better communicate and send it where I need to send it. But I'm not getting that support from you all. And so I really would like more. I would like to see more of that support. And again, I'm not saying everybody on the call. I'm just saying there's just people that's just not supporting at all. But I really would like to see more of it. And so if we can work together we can make Chandler better. And then if you want to support and you just don't know about the events, please, you can send me an email to you can send an email out to the council. You can access, you can go on our webpage, you can reach out to me, and I can also solve. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because I want to continue to press upon us to support what we're doing, because we can't be in a last minute huddle trying to support. We got to really do this consistently. And so lastly, I'll say this: I appreciate Councilmember Matt Orlando for continuing to support. I appreciate the Honorable Lindsay Love. I appreciate State Representative Jennifer Jermaine, who continues to do a great job. And then all of those, and Carol and some others that have reached out to me. So I just saying, I need that support. I'm always under attack for no reason, but if you guys are not there to help and support, then I don't have nobody having my back, and it makes it much more difficult. With that being said, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate each one of you guys for what you guys do. But let's support each other, not just in words, but also in deeds as well. Thanks.
Thank you, OD. Appreciate that. And just before we close out of here, I have one really quick thing that I failed to mention, and that is that Equal will be shutting down as of March 5th, when the Secretary of State updates their systems based on the new voter rolls and new lines. So if you haven't gone up to Equal and you haven't given your $5 to the clean elections candidates that you want to support, or sign actually provide your petition signature, it's a perfect way to do it, and it's really simple. So if you think there's somebody that you haven't signed yet, please go check that first, because that is going to go away as of March 5th. So I just wanted to let everybody know. And one of those candidates is also AJ, who, just because AJ is in another district doesn't mean that we're not supporting him. So so if you are in that area where AJ lives and you haven't signed his petition, please go up there and do that as well. That's important. So that's it. Does anybody have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait a minute, Steve. I got one thing.
Yeah.
Chairman, sorry about that.
Okay.
There was I was trying to get off the call, but there was a question about what is the City of Chandler COVID protocols. I believe that was asked in the chat. And currently right now, our protocols have been more along the lines of choice. As you know, that's where, that's kind of where we are right now. So you have the option, if you choose to wear a mask when you come to work, you can. If you choose not to, there's no requirement that says you have. We are in a hybrid model in the City of Chandler currently right now. What I mean by hybrid is that staff is not always, we're not at full capacity working. There's some critical roles that requires us to be full staff working, but currently right now we have, they alternate. Our team is always alternating how many days in the office versus how many is working from home. We've also made it a little bit more convenient for staff to be at home if they choose to be at home to work and still run functionally. We did do a lot of upgrades with our technology that has allowed that. So currently from a city perspective, we are, if you are masked, if you are not vaccinated, we ask that you kindly wear your mask. And so right now we're still in that place of choice, but if there's some additional things that we should be mitigating or, about that, remember that's going to take 4 council members to say yes to. So whatever new protocols that people feel we should have, it's going to take 4 to say yes. So hopefully I answered the question.
I think you did, OD. Thank you very much. Okay, and now just being cognizant of the time here, can I get a motion to adjourn? Helen, I see Helen. I'm only seeing one screen. Oh, Howard, I got Howard as a second. Thank you, Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for
Steve.
Your questions this evening. I thought those were some excellent questions. And thank you to the candidates that showed up and spoke. We appreciate you immensely for running. And I hope everybody has a great month. And like I said, become a PC. Just do that, and you'll be thankful that you did.